Okay, let's just jump right in. For years, we've all been told the same thing about how to disagree better. You know the drill, just be more empathetic, try harder to see their side. But if you've ever actually tried that and still walked away from a conversation feeling completely misunderstood, well, you know that advice is missing something huge. Today, we're going to look at the research that proves it's not what you're thinking on the inside, but the specific words you say out loud that can turn a destructive fight into a really productive disagreement. And this is really the core of the problem, isn't it? We know that clashing ideas, that's where breakthroughs happen. Disagreement can be an engine for creativity. But we also know it's kind of like playing with fire. If you handle it badly, it just burns relationships and destroys team morale. So the big question is, why do our best intentions to have a healthy debate so often blow up in our faces? I want you to just take a second and think of a real moment. You walked into that conversation or that meeting with a solid plan. You were going to be the calm one. You were going to listen, be compassionate, keep your cool. And then what happens? 20 minutes later, voices are raised, everyone's on the defensive, and you're somehow even further apart than when you started. It's a super common experience, and it turns out it's probably not your fault. Right? So here's the standard playbook we've all been handed. And look, none of this advice is wrong exactly. The issue isn't that it's bad advice, it's that it is dangerously incomplete. It focuses 100% on your internal mindset, a state of mind that is totally, completely invisible to the person you're talking to. And this brings us right to the heart of the matter. See, there's this massive gap between our internal world, all our good intentions, and our external world of what we actually do. What we plan to do in our heads doesn't just magically translate into what comes out of our mouths, especially when things get tense. So this slide really breaks it down perfectly. Over on the left, you've got all your noble thoughts, your empathy, your open-mindedness, all that good stuff. But to the other person, that's a total black box. They can't see any of it. All they have to go on is what's on the right, your observable, verbal behavior, the actual words you use. That's the only data they have to figure out what you really mean. And this quote from the research just nails it. For any of your good intentions to actually have an impact, they have to be translated into something the other person can see and hear. So that's simple. If your empathy stays locked up inside your head, it's basically useless in the actual conversation. Okay, so where does this translation process go wrong? Well, researchers have pinpointed two specific gaps in communication that always seem to trip us up. Think of these as the two key moments where our good intentions get lost on the way to becoming well-received words. The first one is called the intention-behavior gap. The best way to think about this is like a New Year's resolution. You have every intention of being calm and curious and respectful, but then the disagreement gets heated, your fight-or-flight instincts kick in, and poof, that intention just vanishes. Instead, you end up interrupting or using a sharp tone you didn't mean to. But let's say you clear that first hurdle. You manage to say something calm. You're still not out of the woods. The second trap is the behavior perception gap. This is where the words you so carefully chose are heard and interpreted in a way you absolutely did not intend. This is such a perfect illustration of that second gap. Imagine you genuinely want to understand your colleague's point. So you ask, why would you think that? In your mind, you're being curious, you're extending an olive branch, but what do they hear? Well, based on their past experiences, or maybe just your tone, they hear a challenge. They hear, how could you possibly think something so stupid? The exact same words just created two completely different realities. So, if just having the right mindset isn't enough, then what is the answer? Well, it's about being way more deliberate with our language. And the good news is, we don't have to guess what works. Research gives us a concrete set of verbal tools we can use to bridge those gaps. So, let's open up the toolkit. We're going to walk through 5 specific, powerful, and, this is the most important part, observable language techniques. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about choosing your words more strategically so your good intentions actually land the way you want them to. First up, don't just feel curious, say you're curious. Instead of asking a question that could easily sound like an attack, you explicitly state your goal. Using a phrase like, I'd love to better understand where you're coming from, makes your intention to learn totally undeniable. It changes the whole dynamic from an interrogation to a collaboration. Second, you have to prove you are listening by acknowledging their point. You don't have to agree with it, not at all. You just have to show that you heard it. Saying something like, Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're concerned about X before you make your own point is incredibly powerful. It tells them their words mattered, which, guess what, makes them way more likely to listen to yours. Number 3, find the common ground and say it out loud. In almost any disagreement, there is some kind of shared goal. Maybe it's the success of the project or what's best for the family. Using a phrase like, I think we both want to find the best solution here, instantly reframes the whole conversation. It's no longer me versus you, it's us versus the problem. All right, number 4 is to hedge your claims. This is all about showing a little intellectual humility. So instead of stating your opinion like it's a fact written in stone, you soften it. Use phrases that show your perspective is just that, one perspective. Saying this is just my 2 cents, or I could be wrong, but it doesn't make you look weak. Actually, studies show it makes you seem more thoughtful and more credible. And the final tool in the kit, share your story. When you get to a point where you're just stuck, arguing over facts and data, sometimes the best way to move forward is to explain the personal experience that led you to your belief. A short, vulnerable story about why you believe what you do can build a bridge of human connection that a spreadsheet just never will. Now, these tools are absolute game changers for us as individuals, but what if you wanted to build an entire culture around this idea? How does a whole organization get better at disagreeing? Well, the same principle applies. You have to focus on what's observable, not just abstract values. The smartest organizations, they don't just put empathy on a motivational poster. No, they actually train their teams on these specific verbal skills. They make sure their leaders are modeling this exact language in every single meeting. Some are even using tech to give people private feedback on their communication. And most importantly, they start to hire and promote people who have mastered this art of disagreeing without being disagreeable. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Disagreements, they are not only inevitable, they are necessary. They're how we grow. But destructive, relationship-ending conflict, that is not inevitable. And the difference often comes down to small, deliberate, and observable changes in the words we choose. And that brings it all back to you. I want you to think about your week ahead. What is one conversation, maybe with a coworker, your boss, your partner, that you're maybe a little nervous about? Now just pick one technique from that toolkit we just went through. How could you use it to change the entire dynamic of that one conversation? Because the real power to make our disagreements better isn't in changing our minds, it's in choosing our words.